Professor Kaelen stood frozen at the podium, her three eyes blinking in complete asynchronous confusion. The holographic display behind her showed what her research team had labeled as Extinct Species Delta 7, a primitive bipedal race that had supposedly vanished 3,000 cycles ago. The image rotated slowly, showing skeletal structure, theoretical musculature, and behavioral patterns. Then someone in the back row raised their hand. Yes? Kaelen's voice carried across the lecture hall, a space designed to hold 200 of the galaxy's brightest xenoarchaeology students. Professor, the student called out, her tone uncertain. Why are you showing my graduation photo? The lecture hall went silent. You could have heard a quantum particle decay. Kaelen's skin shifted from its usual teal to a pale green, which in her species indicated extreme bewilderment. I'm sorry, what? The student stood up. She was short by galactic standards, standing maybe 5.5 feet tall. 2 arms, 2 legs, bilateral symmetry. Hair the color of burnt sienna pulled back in what Kaelen's datapad unhelpfully labeled as a ponytail. She wore the standard university jumpsuit, but something about her posture screamed confidence that bordered on cocky. That's a human, the student said, pointing at the hologram. I'm a human. We're not extinct. Kaelen felt her primary heart skip approximately 3 beats. Her secondary heart picked up the slack. Thank the void. That's impossible. Clearly not, the human replied, spreading her arms in a gesture that seemed to say ta-da without actually saying it. I'm Mira Thomson. I literally submitted a paper on human agricultural techniques last semester. You gave me an 87% and wrote fascinating alternative approach to crop rotation in the margins. Other students began murmuring. Some pulled out their datapads, frantically searching databases. A Corvian in the 3rd row made a choking sound that might have been laughter or existential crisis. With Corvians it was always 50-50. Kaelen's teaching assistant, a young Threxian named Vorp, scrambled to the main console. His tentacles flew across the keyboard with practiced efficiency. Professor, I'm checking the enrollment database and cross-referencing with the Galactic Census Bureau. And Kaelen's voice came out higher than intended. There are 73 humans enrolled at this university alone. 73. Yes, Professor. Humans. Correct. The species I've been teaching is extinct for the last 15 years. Apparently not, Professor. Kaelen sat down in her chair, which immediately adjusted to her physiology with a soft pneumatic hiss. She stared at Mira Thomson, who stared back with an expression that somehow managed to be both amused and sympathetic. How did humans do that? Convey multiple emotions simultaneously? It was unsettling. How long? Kaelen asked quietly. Mira tilted her head. How long what? How long have humans been part of the galactic community? About 80 years, give or take. Mira sat back down, clearly enjoying this more than was strictly appropriate. We made first contact in 2157, joined the coalition in 2162. It's 2,245 now, so you do the math. 80 years, 80 standard galactic years, and somehow the entire xenoarchaeology department had missed it. Kaelen could already see her tenure review going up in metaphorical flames, possibly literal flames if the department head had anything to say about it. He was Pyrrhonian after all. But the excavation on Theta 9, Kaelen protested weakly. The fossil records. The dating puts those remains at 3,000 cycles old. The DNA degradation suggested extinction event approximately 1,600 cycles ago. Oh that! Mira snapped her fingers. Another peculiar human gesture. Those weren't humans. Common mistake, apparently. Those were Deltans. They looked similar to us, but they had 6 fingers per hand and an extra vertebra. Also, they went extinct because they couldn't figure out fire. Pretty embarrassing way to go for a supposedly advanced species. A Corthan student in the front row raised his dorsal fin. How do you know all this? Because it's in the Coalition historical database under species frequently confused with humans. There's literally a whole section. Mira pulled out her datapad and flicked the information to the main display. Sure enough, there it was. A comprehensive list of species that resembled humans, complete with distinguishing characteristics and extinction dates. The Deltans were number 3 on the list. Kaelen felt her third eye twitch. It only did that when she was extremely stressed or had consumed too much fermented Zixel fruit. The database. The publicly accessible database that any first-year student can access, yes. The one I should have checked. Probably. Yeah. A laugh burst out from somewhere in the middle rows. Then another. Within seconds, the entire lecture hall erupted in various forms of amusement. Clicking, chittering, huffing, and in one case, what sounded like a small combustion engine starting up. That was probably Jex, the Vortan exchange student. His species laughed by igniting their internal methane pockets in rapid succession. Kaelen buried her face in her hands. All 6 of them. This is the worst day of my academic career. Could be worse, Vorp offered helpfully. How? You could have published your findings. I did, last month, in the Journal of Extinct Civilizations. The laughter stopped abruptly. The silence that followed was somehow worse. Oh no, Vorp whispered. Oh yes. Kaelen stood up, her posture deflating slightly. I need to send a retraction. Immediately. Before the entire galactic scientific community sees that I declared a species extinct that is currently attending universities, working jobs, and apparently writing papers about crop rotation. Mira raised her hand again. What now? Kaelen's tone came out sharper than intended. In your defense, we humans do have a habit of ending up in weird places. There's this whole thing where we keep getting mistaken for other species because we're pretty generic as far as body plans go. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. Very standard. We're like the galactic equivalent of beige. That's not making me feel better. I'm just saying, you're probably not the first professor to make this mistake. There's a betting pool in the Human Student Union about how long it takes for each new xenoarchaeology professor to figure it out. Kaelen's skin shifted to deep purple, indicating a mixture of embarrassment and growing anger. There's a betting pool. Oh yeah, pretty active one too. Current jackpot is up to 1,500 credits. And none of you thought to mention this earlier? Before I spent an entire semester teaching incorrect information? Mira shrugged, another frustratingly ambiguous human gesture. We figured you'd figure it out eventually. Plus, honestly, your theories about our theoretical extinction were pretty interesting. The whole bit about how we supposedly died out because we couldn't adapt to climate change? Darkly hilarious, considering we're currently living on 17 different planet types. A Zelvorian student spoke up, her voice modulated through her translation collar. Professor Kaelen, if I may ask, how did this error occur in the first place? Surely there are protocols. There are, Kaelen admitted, pulling up her research notes. We found the Deltan remains on Theta 9 during a routine excavation. Carbon dating put them at approximately 3,000 cycles old. The DNA was degraded, but we managed to extract enough for basic analysis. The structure matched 74% with known humanoid species, but there were no exact matches in the extinct species database. Did you check the living species database? Mira asked innocently. The question hung in the air like a particularly awkward cloud. No, Kaelen said quietly. Because why would a 3,000-year-old fossil match a living species? Except it wasn't a perfect match, was it? Mira leaned forward, and despite the situation there was genuine interest in her eyes. You said 74%. Humans would have been 89% minimum. The Deltans had different protein structures in their bone composition. Slightly higher calcium content, denser marrow. It's all in the literature, which I clearly didn't read thoroughly enough. Vorp's tentacles tapped nervously on his datapad. Professor, I hate to make this worse, but the Journal of Extinct Civilizations has already started circulating your paper. It's been cited 4 times. 4 times? In 1 month? Your extinction theory was apparently very compelling. 2 graduate students are already basing their dissertations on it. Kaelen made a sound that didn't translate into any known language but universally conveyed profound distress. Contact them, now, before they waste any more time on my spectacular failure. Mira stood up and walked down the aisle toward the podium. The other students watched with the kind of rapt attention usually reserved for sporting events or dramatic courtroom reveals. Professor Kaelen, if it helps, I think there's an interesting story here. The story of my academic embarrassment? No, the story of why this keeps happening. Mira gestured to the hologram of the Deltan skeleton. Think about it. Humans show up to the galactic community relatively recently. We look similar to at least 6 other species, 3 of which are extinct. Our homeworld had limited contact with the greater galaxy until 80 years ago, and we have this weird tendency to adapt to basically any environment you throw at us. Where are you going with this? I'm saying maybe the question isn't why you made this mistake. Maybe the question is why humans are so unremarkable that we keep getting lost in the database. Mira's eyes lit up with the kind of enthusiasm that Kaelen usually saw in first-year students before reality crushed their spirits. What if humans are deliberately generic? What if that's our evolutionary advantage? A Corthan student raised his fin again. That's absurd. No species evolves to be average. Don't they, though? Mira countered. Think about persistence hunting. Humans aren't the fastest runners. We're not the strongest. We don't have claws or venom or natural armor. But we can run forever. We can sweat to cool down while our prey overheats. We can track injured animals for days until they collapse from exhaustion. We win by being good enough at everything and excellent at not giving up. Kaelen found herself leaning forward despite her embarrassment. That's actually a fascinating theory. Right? And it translates to space travel. We don't have the best ships, but our ships work in multiple environments. We're not the smartest species, but we learn fast and adapt faster. We're the galactic generalists. The beige of space, someone muttered from the back row. Exactly. Mira spun around, addressing the entire lecture hall now. We're so average that we literally get mistaken for extinct species. But that averageness is our superpower. We fit in everywhere because we don't stand out anywhere. Kaelen pulled up a new hologram, this one showing human settlement patterns across the galaxy. Blue dots indicating colonies, red dots for outposts, green for diplomatic missions. The map was covered in dots. By the void, you're everywhere. Told you. 17 planet types. We've got people living on ice worlds, desert worlds, ocean worlds, high-gravity worlds, low-gravity worlds. We even have a colony on a planet with a methane atmosphere. They wear suits, obviously, but still, the fact that we even tried says something. A thought occurred to Kaelen, one that made her skin shift to yellow with curiosity. Mira, how many extinct species are humans mistaken for? In the database? 6. In real life? Probably more. There's this running joke in the human community that we're everyone's long-lost cousins. And none of you find this concerning? Mira grinned, showing her flat, omnivorous teeth. Professor, humans spent thousands of years on our homeworld thinking we were alone in the universe. Then we found out there were hundreds of intelligent species out there, and most of them had been traveling between stars while we were still figuring out the wheel. We're just happy to be included. If that means occasionally being mistaken for the Deltans or the Vexillorians or whoever, that's fine. At least people remember us eventually. Usually when we're sitting in their lecture halls, added a human student from the middle row, grinning. The rest of the class laughed again, but this time Kaelen found herself laughing too. It was a gurgling sound that her species made when genuinely amused. I suppose I did make it rather obvious, didn't I? The 40-minute lecture on our theoretical extinction? Yeah, that was a clue. Vorp raised a tentacle tentatively. Professor, what do we do about the paper? Kaelen straightened up, her academic dignity reasserting itself despite everything. We issue a full retraction with an explanation. We contact everyone who cited the work. And then we do something I should have done from the beginning. Actual research. Proper research. The kind that includes checking if the species you're studying is currently enrolled in your class. And the betting pool? Mira asked, eyes twinkling. Someone won, I assume? Yeah, a guy named Marcus. He predicted you'd figure it out during week 15. He's going to be thrilled. Tell Marcus congratulations, and that I expect a very detailed paper on why humans are so forgettable, as partial compensation for my emotional distress. I'll let him know. Kaelen took a deep breath, cycling air through all 3 of her respiratory systems. All right, new lecture plan. For the rest of the semester, we're going to study actually extinct species. Species that I can confirm are definitely not attending this university. Vorp, pull up information on the Krelnax. They've been gone for 5,000 cycles, so unless they're remarkably good at hiding, we should be safe. On it, Professor. As Vorp worked to change the holographic display, Kaelen looked out at her students. Most were still grinning. Some were taking notes, probably documenting this disaster for future entertainment. But they were engaged, attentive, interested. Maybe this wasn't the worst thing that could have happened. Embarrassing? Absolutely. Career damaging? Potentially. But also strangely educational. The hologram shifted to show the Krelnax, a species of crystalloid beings that had died out when their home star went supernova. Definitely extinct. Probably. Kaelen glanced at Mira. They are extinct, right? As far as I know, yeah. But I'm human, so take that with a grain of salt. We're apparently not great at keeping track of who's alive and who's not. Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Kaelen pulled up her teaching notes, already mentally composing her retraction letter. "Let's begin again, shall we? And this time, if anyone in this room happens to be a Krellnax, please speak up now and save me the embarrassment." Silence. Excellent. Now, the Krellnax were a fascinating species known for their silicon-based biology. As she lectured, Kaelen noticed Mira still watching her with that peculiar human expression that managed to be both sympathetic and amused. Somehow, despite the catastrophic revelation that her entire semester's work was based on a species that was actively eating lunch in the cafeteria, Kaelen felt oddly hopeful. If nothing else, this would make one hell of a story at the next faculty mixer. 3 days after what the students were now calling the Great Human Reveal. Kaelen sat in her office staring at her terminal screen with the intensity of someone watching a star collapse. The retraction letter had been sent, the apologies had been issued. 2 graduate students had thanked her profusely for catching the error before they defended their dissertations based on faulty data. One had cried. Apparently, relief manifested as ocular fluid discharge in Velmorians. Her terminal pinged. Another message. Kaelen braced herself, expecting another sarcastic comment from a colleague or perhaps a formal reprimand from the dean. Instead, the sender was listed as Dr. Helena Okonkwo, Department of Human Studies, University of New Tyros. Kaelen opened it. "Professor Kaelen, I heard about your recent publication mishap through the academic grapevine, which apparently moves faster than quantum communication these days. Before you sink further into what I assume is profound professional despair, I want to extend an invitation. Would you be interested in collaborating on a proper study of human archaeological presence in the galaxy? I think your mistake reveals something genuinely interesting about how humans interface with galactic record-keeping systems. Also, I promise we are definitely not extinct. Mostly. Regards, Helena." Mostly. Kaelen read the message 3 more times, searching for mockery. She found none. Just straightforward academic interest with a hint of humor. Very human, apparently. She was composing a response when her office door chimed. "Enter," she called out, not looking up from her screen. "Professor, got a minute?" Mira Thomson stood in the doorway, holding 2 steaming containers. The scent wafting from them was unfamiliar, but not unpleasant. Something spicy, earthy, with undertones of what Kaelen's olfactory sensors identified as combusted plant matter. "What is that smell?" "Coffee and cardamom. Human beverages. Figured you could use some after the week you've had." Mira set 1 container on Kaelen's desk. "Fair warning, caffeine affects different species in weird ways. For you, it might be a mild stimulant, or it might make you see sounds. Hard to predict." "That's not reassuring. Life's an adventure, Professor." Mira settled into the guest chair, which adjusted with a confused wheeze, clearly not programmed for human proportions. "I also brought you something else." She placed a data chip on the desk. Kaelen eyed it suspiciously. "What's on it?" "Every single instance of humans being mistaken for other species in the last 80 years. Academic papers, news articles, diplomatic incidents, that one time a human ambassador was almost dissected because someone thought we were an undiscovered variant of the Tellurian cave salamander. That was awkward. Someone tried to dissect an ambassador. In their defense, he was sleeping in a really weird position and wasn't wearing his translator badge. Still, you'd think the formal diplomatic robes would have been a clue." Kaelen picked up the chip, turning it over in her hands. "Why are you giving me this?" "Because I think you stumbled onto something important, even if you got the extinct part wrong." Mira leaned forward, her posture shifting to something more serious. "Humans have been part of the galactic community for 8 decades, but we keep vanishing from databases, getting categorized wrong, or being labeled as subsets of other species. Last year, a census report listed us under miscellaneous carbon-based bipeds. We had to file 3 formal complaints. That's administratively embarrassing." "It's more than embarrassing, Professor. It's dangerous." Mira's voice dropped lower. "What happens when a species keeps getting lost in the system? What happens when emergency supplies get routed to the wrong planets because someone filed humans under the wrong classification? What happens when medical databases don't include proper information because we're too generic to warrant a unique entry?" Kaelen felt her skin shift to orange, her species color for dawning realization. "People die. People die," Mira confirmed. "Last year, a human colony on Xerxes Prime had a viral outbreak. The Galactic Health Organization sent medication designed for Tellurians because that's what our medical profiles were filed under. Tellurian and human biology are similar, but not identical. The medication killed 6 people before a human doctor figured out the problem. The office suddenly felt colder. Kaelen set down the chip carefully. I didn't know. Most people don't. We've filed reports, but they get buried under bureaucratic nonsense. The Coalition has 17,000 member species. We're new, we're generic-looking, and we don't have the political weight to force changes. Mira paused. But an accidentally viral academic paper about human extinction, that gets attention. You want me to use my embarrassment as a platform. I want you to use your expertise. You're a xenoarchaeologist, Professor. You study how species leave marks on history. Help us figure out why humans keep getting erased from the present. Kaelen activated the data chip. Information flooded her screens. Incident reports, medical records, census data, diplomatic cables. The pattern was undeniable. Humans appeared, made contributions, achieved things, and then somehow slipped through the cracks of galactic record-keeping. This is systemic, she muttered. Yeah, and it's getting worse. More humans are spreading through the galaxy, but the infrastructure for tracking us isn't improving. We're falling through holes in a system that wasn't designed for a species like us. A species that's aggressively average. Exactly. Mira smiled grimly. We're too normal. We don't have unique biological markers that flag in scanners. We don't have distinctive cultural practices that make us memorable. We eat a variety of foods, live in a variety of climates, practice a variety of belief systems. We're statistical noise. Kaelen pulled up a galactic map, overlaying human settlement data. The dots seemed random at first, but as she adjusted parameters, patterns emerged. Humans clustered around trade routes, research stations, diplomatic hubs. Anywhere there was opportunity, humans appeared. You're everywhere, Kaelen said, echoing her earlier observation. We're generalists. We go where we're useful. But useful doesn't mean memorable. A thought struck Kaelen. The Deltans, the species I confused you with. What happened to them? They died out because they were too specialized. They could only survive in specific atmospheric conditions on specific planets. When their home system became unstable, they couldn't adapt fast enough. Extinction in 3 generations. And humans? We're the opposite. We're so unspecialized that we can survive almost anywhere. But that same trait makes us invisible to systems designed to track distinctive species. Kaelen stood, pacing her office. Her minds were racing, all 3 brain lobes firing in different directions. This is bigger than a simple database error. Way bigger. This is about how the entire Galactic Coalition conceptualizes species identity. Now you're getting it. Kaelen stopped pacing, turning to face Mira directly. Why me? Why bring this to a professor who just publicly declared your entire species extinct? Because you cared enough to study us in the first place, even if you got the timeline wrong, and because you issued a retraction immediately instead of doubling down on the error. That shows integrity. Mira stood as well, matching Kaelen's posture. Plus, you're Velothian. Your species has been part of the Coalition for 6,000 years. You have institutional credibility that humans don't have yet. And you want to borrow that credibility. I want to collaborate. There's a difference. Kaelen's terminal pinged again. Another message, this time from the Dean's office. She opened it with trepidation. Professor Kaelen, your recent retraction has drawn unexpected attention. The Coalition Science Directorate is requesting a presentation on systematic species misclassification in archaeological databases. They want to know if your error represents a broader pattern. Please prepare a comprehensive analysis within 30 days. Regards, Dean Thexlaw. Kaelen showed the message to Mira, who grinned. 30 days to save humanity from bureaucratic obscurity. Think you can manage? Absolutely not. This requires expertise I don't have. I need specialists in database architecture, medical systems, census methodology, diplomatic protocol. Kaelen pulled up her contact list. I need a team. I know people. Of course you do. Humans are good at networking. It's one of our few distinctive traits. We talk to everyone, remember everything, and hold grudges across generations. That last part is not reassuring. It's useful though. Mira pulled out her datapad. Give me 12 hours. I'll have specialists from 6 different fields ready to work. In 12 hours, Professor, humans colonized 17 planet types in 80 years. We're annoyingly efficient when motivated. Kaelen felt something she hadn't expected to feel after the lecture hall disaster. Excitement. Real academic excitement. the kind that made her want to stay up for multiple sleep cycles analyzing data. "All right," she said firmly, "but we do this properly. Peer review, multiple verification sources, transparent methodology. I'm not publishing another paper that makes me look like a fool. Deal. Although for what it's worth, you looked more shocked than foolish. Very meme-worthy." Meme-worthy? Human term. It means you became internet famous for something embarrassing. There's a video of your face when I said I was human. It's been viewed about 40,000 times. Kaelen's skin shifted to deep purple. Wonderful. Look at it this way. You're memorable now. That's more than most professors can say. Over the next 27 days, Kaelen's office transformed into a command center. Humans streamed through, bringing expertise in everything from coding to census analysis. A woman named Yuki Tanaka specialized in database architecture and could explain why coalition systems kept defaulting humans to wrong categories. A man called James Oduor worked in medical systems and had documentation of 17 separate incidents where human medical data was filed incorrectly. Dr. Helena Okonkwo arrived in person on day 3, bringing with her 30 years of experience studying human integration into galactic society. She was tall, moved with deliberate grace, and had a laugh that could probably be heard across 3 star systems. "So you're the professor who killed us all," Helena said, shaking Kaelen's hand with that peculiar human greeting gesture. "I'm trying to make amends. By proving we're systematically invisible? I love it. Let's embarrass some bureaucrats." They worked around the clock, which for a mixed species team meant complicated scheduling to account for different circadian rhythms. Kaelen discovered that humans could function on surprisingly little sleep, fueled by something they called coffee and sheer stubbornness. The data was damning. In the last 80 years, humans had been miscategorized in databases 4,312 times. Medical records showed 247 incidents of wrong medication being prescribed. Census data revealed 3 colonies that had been completely omitted from resource allocation because they were filed under extinct species designations. Kaelen stared at the numbers. "How is your species still alive?" "Spite, mostly," Mira answered. She hadn't left the office in 3 days. "Also, we're really good at complaining until people fix things. The squeaky wheel gets the grease," James added. "I don't know what that means." Human saying. "Means if you're annoying enough, eventually people pay attention." On day 28, they had a complete presentation. Graphs, charts, case studies, recommendations for systemic reform. Kaelen reviewed it one final time, her 3 eyes scanning every detail. "This is going to cause problems," she said quietly. "Good," Helena replied. "The system needs problems. Comfortable bureaucracies don't change." The presentation day arrived. The Coalition Science Directorate Auditorium held 300 representatives from member species. Kaelen stood at the podium, her heart's pounding in complicated rhythms. She began with her mistake, showed the Delton skeleton, explained her faulty methodology, detailed how she'd declared humans extinct while one sat in her classroom. The audience laughed, as she'd expected. Then she showed the data. The laughter stopped. 4,312 miscategorizations, 247 medical incidents, 3 forgotten colonies, 6 deaths that could have been prevented. "Humans are dying," Kaelen said, her voice steady, "because our systems are not designed for species that are generalists. We categorize by distinctive features, unique biology, specific cultural practices, memorable physical traits. Humans have none of these. They are, by galactic standards, aggressively average. And that averageness is killing them." A Corvian representative raised a tentacle. "What do you propose?" "Systemic reform. New database protocols that don't rely on distinctive features. Medical systems that verify species identity through multiple markers, not just physical appearance. Census methodologies that actively track generalist species instead of assuming they'll be obviously identifiable." "That's expensive," someone called out. "It's cheaper than settlements from wrongful death lawsuits," James called back from the audience. "We've done the math. Want to see the legal briefs?" The directorate members shifted uncomfortably. Helena stood. "Humans are not asking for special treatment. We're asking for accurate treatment. We want to exist in your systems the way we actually are, not the way your databases assume we should be." "And if we refuse?" The question came from a Pyronian official, flames flickering along his shoulders. Mira stood now too, joining Helena. "Then we'll keep complaining. We'll file reports, submit corrections, demand reviews. We're human. Persistence is literally our thing. We chased prey animals to exhaustion across continents. You think we can't annoy bureaucrats until they fix databases? The Pyrrhonian's flames flickered in what might have been amusement. That sounds like a threat. It's a promise, Mira said sweetly. We have time, we're patient, we're everywhere. And we really, really hate being ignored. The vote took 2 hours. System reform passed by a margin of 73%. New protocols would be implemented within the year. Database architecture would be redesigned to accommodate generalist species. Medical verification would require multiple confirmation points. Kaelen stood outside the auditorium afterward, feeling strangely deflated now that the adrenaline was fading. Mira found her there, still holding a half-empty coffee container. You did it, Mira said. We did it. You started it by accidentally declaring us extinct. That took guts. Accidental guts, but still. Kaelen laughed, that gurgling sound again. I'm never going to live this down, am I? Absolutely not. You're going to be famous as the professor who killed humanity. Students will talk about you for decades. It's kind of wonderful. My embarrassment is wonderful? Your embarrassment led to systemic change that will save lives. Yeah, that's pretty wonderful. Mira paused. Thank you, Professor, for caring enough to fix your mistake. Thank you for not letting me wallow in it. They stood, together, watching various species file out of the auditorium, some arguing, others already pulling out datapads to begin implementation planning. Change was happening, awkward and bureaucratic and slow, but happening. Hey, Professor, Mira said after a while. Want to know something funny? I'm not sure I can handle more funny today. Marcus, the guy who won the betting pool, he's using the prize money to fund a scholarship for xenoarchaeology students. He's calling it the Check Your Databases First Scholarship. Kaelen groaned. Of course he is. He also wants you on the selection committee. I'm being mocked by my own students. You're being honored by grateful humans who appreciate professors that admit mistakes and fix them. Mira grinned, also mocked, but mostly honored. Kaelen's terminal pinged, a message from the Journal of Extinct Civilizations. She opened it with trepidation. Professor Kaelen, your retraction paper has been the most read article in our journal's history. We would like to commission a follow-up piece on systemic species misclassification. We're also considering renaming the journal to something less definitive. Perhaps, Journal of Species we're pretty sure are extinct but should probably double-check. Thoughts? Editor Vexnoth. Kaelen showed it to Mira, who burst out laughing. I love this galaxy, Mira said between gasps. We're so bad at keeping track of things. We're getting better, Kaelen replied, and meant it. 3 months later, the new database protocols went live. Census data was recompiled, medical systems updated. Human colonies were properly catalogued, human students properly enrolled, human existence properly acknowledged in the official records of the Galactic Coalition. Kaelen published her follow-up paper. It became required reading in xenoarchaeology programs across 12 systems. Marcus started his scholarship fund. The first recipient was a young Corthan student who wanted to study human adaptation strategies. And somewhere in the galactic databases, properly filed and correctly categorized, humanity existed. Not as a footnote, not as a miscellaneous entry, not as an extinct species, just as humans. Aggressively average, persistently annoying, stubbornly alive humans. Kaelen kept the screenshot of her shocked face from the lecture hall, printed it, framed it, hung it in her office. A reminder that sometimes the best discoveries come from spectacular mistakes, and that the most interesting species are the ones you think you already know. Mira graduated top of her class. Her thesis was titled, The Evolutionary Advantages of Being Unremarkable, a Study in Human Galactic Integration. Kaelen gave it a 96% and wrote in the margins, Excellent work. Please confirm you're still alive before I cite this. Mira wrote back, Still alive. Checked this morning. We'll update you if that changes. The galaxy continued turning, species continued evolving, and humans continued being exactly what they'd always been. Survivors, adapters, generalists who refused to be forgotten no matter how many times the systems tried to lose them. And in lecture halls across the Coalition, professors checked their enrollment lists twice, just to be sure none of their supposedly extinct species were sitting in the back row, waiting to raise their hand and politely point out that they were in fact still breathing.